good afternoon. Why are we afraid of the new, and what can we do about it? First of all, being neophobic, fearing for the new, is something that probably each of us have. I noticed this at myself when I started to look for a new car. This is an example. It was not this car. It was much earlier. I was driving a Subaru Outback. And I looked at the new model, and for the first time I saw her, I didn't like it. But over time, I started to like the model, and eventually, I really, really like this car. And this is the process that most car buyers go through. It's hardly possible to start liking an innovative car at the first sight. This is kind of obvious. This is a familiarity principle, that new things begin to appeal only when they become familiar. And in the 60s, a Polish psychologist living in the United States, he discovered what he called a mere exposure effect, saying that people gain a more positive attitude to a novel stimuli with successive exposures. So there is preference, and there is exposure. The more times we see something, the more we like it. And each subsequent exposure causes less fear and more interest. Now, what's important for us as marketeers is that first contacts, they elicit more intense reactions than the latter ones, which means that we need to take care when we are to select an idea to make sure that it evokes emotions, because without emotions, people cannot make decisions. So what we do in Touchideas, we do new brand creation and rebranding. And this is another story of mine. It's been 4 years ago. The first time I saw new Kia logo, I thought, what the hell, what is it? I mean, you can't even read the brand name. Then I started to look at it again and again. And as with the new cars, I started to like it. What experts say? The experts say it's an identity crisis. They are losing recognition. It's a big mistake. Researchers say that this is not a good rebranding because the new logo decreases brand recognition significantly. And some designers, they try to help to save the design by improving the logo. So these are the first signs of acceptance. When we look at the bigger picture, noticing that this is a part of a larger business transformation, the part of moving towards the future, towards the electric cars, toward the modern, that the concept cars look different, the promised user experience is to look different, and that the Kia Sportage is the best-selling crossover in Poland last year. And when we look at the change of sales, you can see this last 3 years, Kia turned their sales curve. They started to grow again. And what the competitors are doing, they started to follow what Kia did, right? This is the new language of the car's brand identity. Dacia, basically Dacia looks like Kia, doesn't it? Or Skoda, they're also changing. So Kia was the pioneer, and they introduced a new visual language, a new style. And now when we look at their old logo, it's obvious that it's old-fashioned, right? It looks like from the past. It's obvious. So how do we react to the new as people? There are two opposing forces. One is excitement and pleasure, and the second is anxiety and discomfort. Neophilia. Novelty increases activity in the mesolimbic dopamine system, which is responsible for motivation and reward attention. However, too much change causes anxiety and discomfort as the brain struggles to adopt and integrate it. So we are caught between two conflicting forces, neophilia and neophobia. Let's go back again to the past, to the 50s, when the concept of marrying industry and art, called industrial design, emerged. Father of industrial design is Raymond Loewy, and he believed that consumers are torn between a curiosity about new things and a fear of anything too new. And he coined the term most advanced yet acceptable, the Maya principle. Raymond Loewy is famous for many, many iconic designs like the bus or the modern combi. He designed it in, I think, late 50s or early 60s for designing the Air Force One, and many, many famous logos like British Petroleum or Shell or Lucky Strikes, and also some important tweaks to Coca-Cola bottle. He said, the main goal is not to complicate the already difficult life of the consumer. Novelty is very important to consumers, to people in general, and to business. First, it stimulates curiosity. It encourages exploration. It attracts attention, helps brands to make a standout, and brings publicity. You cannot succeed in social media without being new or novel, right? Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, he said that only marketing and innovation, they generate revenue. Other functions in a company are costs. Which brings us to neophobia in decision-making. Now, let's step into the shoes of our clients, those who have to make the decision. The neophobia intensifies when you have to make a decision. This is an example of a new brand we created for a startup. They had like 120 eggs being born every day by a very healthy hens, and they had no brand. They couldn't sell it. So we needed to do it really quick. We offered them Wysoka Grzęda, the high roost brand, with a rooster and a logo in the red color, because we meant it to be Ferrari among eggs. Because actually, the founders of the startup are rally drivers. Krzysiek Hołowczys is one of them. And it's not only that it was easier to convince them, talking about Ferrari among eggs, but also because no one in the market used red color. So we said, why don't you register red color? Like Milka has violet, you will have red. And basically, you'll be able to charge premium. They did it. They trusted us. They succeeded. They are in Żabka, they're in Carrefour, they are fully listed, and they did it without a zero spent on advertising. It's much easier to make a decision when you step into a new territory. And this is quite funny. It's a paradox for me, because I realized it just writing this presentation. It's much easier to convince a client to a new idea, like something really, really new, when the client is stepping into a completely new territory, into an unknown. This is one of this year's work. This is Mila Muszyna, a super premium water. It's going to cost 6 zł for half a liter in a Lidl. The idea behind it, it's a very, very high mineral, yet tasty water, slightly bubbled. And the idea that we coined for them, the strategic idea, is the source of mineral power. So it's a lot of minerals, it does good to you, but we needed to present it as a luxury object, of course. So we designed a special bottle, and we made it like really, really yellow to stand out on the shelves. And the client, she just said, yeah, let's go for it. I have no choice. I have no money for advertising. I need to stand out in the stores. Let's go for it. Even easier, it was with our Romanian client, Profi. They are the largest grocery chain in Romania, and they have a brand called Figo that we created for them. It's a convenience store, like Żabka, under the roof of Biedronka, which is Profi in Romania, and they wanted to start selling this kind of juices and smoothies. So we said, yeah, you have a sheep in the logo of Figo. Let's do, why not? YA means sheep in Romanian. And they said, yes, immediately, let's go for it. It's a completely different story when you have to make a decision while there is a lot to lose. For example, you own a third largest chemical corporation in Europe. Your revenue is like 3 billion zloty a year. Your brand has been in the market for 90 years. It was called Czech, Centrala Import-Export Chemiczny. And you are selling your products to 80 countries in the world, on 5 continents, and you are sure that you have to fully rebrand. You need a new brand name and a new brand identity because your old brand is limiting you. And they ask the branding agency. So what we tell them, okay, let's make it a future-focused global chemical company. And yes, we have to do a full rebranding. Now you have to register a brand name worldwide. Yeah, it will cost you around 2 million euro probably, and you will never be sure because in 150 countries and in 5 registration classes, it's very, very hard to find a good brand name, yeah, that will be registerable. So we try. Which one do you like? Chimica, Chemzo, Alkina, Actala, maybe Afxa, or Chemetica? There's no way anyone can make a decision, well, some do, but it's very rare, to make a final decision on the first presentation or on the second. Most companies want to think about it. Some require doing a research. But in general, to convince someone, the owner of the Chemetica, who's going to take Chemetica out of the stock exchange and rely on the new brand, is to have to show the bigger picture. So we develop the entire visual system, and the happy end is Chemetica that is very, very motivating for the employers, which was the main goal. Another example, rebranding of Żywiec. With beer, you really, really need to obey the most advanced yet acceptable principle because consumers are very, very, if they change too much, they think the beer changed. And they, in most cases, they say the taste worse. So you have to be really cautious. And we convinced client to do like a rebranding, kind of, to go back into the roots, to make the dancing couple dance above Żywiec logo again. And we wanted to express the idea of the vitality that is in the DNA of Żywiec and the energy that is in Krakowiak dance. Part of this was enhancing the couple, yeah, making their more characteristic, and the chorals. I really like the chorals. But there's always this thought. Let's play safe. Let's not do a complete revolution. Okay? Why not use the old dancing couple on the new packaging? So not to, as you say, alienate the mainstream consumer, the conservative mainstream consumer. But finally, luckily, it ended with this. The sales went up again. They are back on the good track. And another decision-making situation, I would like you to help me make decision. You are to rebrand Naturek cheese. Okay, they are making camembert cheese. You are making camembert cheese. You're not changing the product. Your branding agency convinced you to rebrand it to Turek. Not call it Naturek, because it's a crazy brand name, isn't it? When the place where it's made is called Turek. By the way, I lost the pitch 8 years ago. In the first second, when I started laughing when they told me they want to brand from Turek to Naturek. I really lost it on the first second. But the management changed, fortunately, and they called us again after 8 years, and they asked us to do the strategy and the redesign. So we did this. They had a segmentation, marketing segmentation. We worked on brand positioning, and we came to this point. It was 9 months' work, where we had the design concepts. It was a very, very long process. So we had these concepts, and which one would you go for? Which one would you invest the further work in? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Okay, 2 or 1, 4. Okay, to make a decision, people need to come to an agreement, right? The problem is that in most meetings, people focus on what they dislike, and different people dislike different ideas. So we always ask client not to make a decision, to wait. Okay, what we do, we prototype, we do a physical prototypes, and we leave them at client's office so that all people can walk through, and without the burden of making a decision, they can share their feelings, their first thoughts. And we remember that first impressions are never conclusive. That was the winning concept. During the focus groups, we encouraged people to do their own designs out of our designs, and this is only to give them 1.5 hours to change their first decision, because the first decision, the first opinion, is usually not the one that you will have after second or third exposure. So finally, we agreed to do this. We convinced client to go for this concept and to replace the Naturek with the new concept. And we wanted to do the final design. But there is always, not in all companies, but in many companies, where the decision-making is, when there is a group decision-making process, and there is, levels, hierarchy, and, bosses in France and so on, you have to ask consumers to make sure this change is safe, because people, usually, the corporations, they don't make a decision based on imagination, like we are today, but based on the knowledge or facts. So they need numbers. To get numbers, companies do research. They do test research, quantitative test research. So this is the control sample, and this is the experimental sample. And the delta, the difference between the results in liking and in purchase intent, is the basis for the decision. There is green light, yellow light, or red light. Okay, so we have the results. Unfortunately, you failed. Improve the project and try again. Okay, we know there is a status quo bias. This is another psychological phenomenon. Basically, we as humans, we try to save our sugar in our brains. This is, evolutionary thing. So we prefer the status quo when making decisions on the low involvement that are not the best or most beneficial option, but we are looking for the things that require less effort and less emotional commitment. So the things that we are familiar with are easily accepted. Okay, we changed the design to make it more similar to the previous one. And we try to show the big picture, right? So we show how it's gonna work. We make, animations, ad sets, yeah? We show the entire portfolio. Yeah, okay, we're there, right? But we have to run a final test to be 100% sure, right? So we have the control sample, we have the experimental sample. The delta is measured, it's a little better, but sadly you failed. Improve the project and try again. The good thing was that we have the privilege to work with clients who listen to us, and there is a lot of common sense in making decisions, so they made it to the market with this design. We developed it finally, and 2 months ago, they became a market leader after a few years. So they came back to the number one. Thank you. So the conclusion out of this is, to form an opinion, people need time. When you are exposed to a new, you need time to make a decision. The first impressions are not conclusive. And there is two big challenges. Related to quantitative test research that I would like to talk about. First is that because quantitative tests, they measure first impressions, the proposals that are familiar, that are not very progressive, are preferred. And the second problem is that test researchers fail to recognize that people have different attitudes towards the new. Okay? People are different. This book was written, I think, in 1968, when there was Vietnam War. It's an old book. Everyone knows it. The diffusion of innovations, the adoption cycle, saying some people need less and others more time to accept the new. Right here, probably most of you are innovators. You create the new, or early adopters. Yeah, you look for the new, you get excited. You are rather on the neophilia side rather than neophobia. But consumers and some of the decision makers, they're not like we in this room. They need more time. They need more repetitions to get accustomed to the new idea or to the new design. And they will look to what early adopters and innovators have done. Right? It takes time. Like with me and the cars, I need time to accept the innovative design. We decided to check it because we couldn't find a scientific research about difference in reaction to the brands, to fast-moving consumer good brands. That's what we often do, so we needed data on that. So what happens if you are exposed to a new brand for the first, second, and third time, and are the results the same as in the tests that I showed? And the first question was, do we differ? Does it make difference if we ask opinion leaders or the late majority? Okay. What we tested? We tested the new brands. Only Wysoka Grzęda is in the market, but wasn't very well known yet. We tested the brands from Romania and the brands that didn't hit the market yet, and Mila, which was not launched yet. And some brands like Für, which is our brand for German chemistry for professionals, or Kli, the intimate hygiene brand, or Abuebo, the baby brand, or Compi, which is the dog food, basically. So we had 13 brands, and we asked over 1,000 respondents, and they had a few days break between the measurements. So we wanted to measure the delta after third repetition. And we asked a brutal question: which product would you buy? The purchase intent, actually focusing on the answer, which product would you definitely buy? I don't think it's the wisest thing to ask people. It's like, would you go to bed with me on the first date, right? Would you definitely buy Mila Muszyna, or would you definitely buy Geralt when you see it on the first time? But this is how it's done. The big decisions are made based on such numbers, okay? So we had to repeat the same technique. So we tested it on the virtual shelves, like this. We tested it against brands that are already in the market across various categories, 13 new brands. Okay. The first conclusion, we did it with Symmetria, our research partner. The first conclusion is that people differ in their attitudes towards the new. If you look into the average purchase intention for new brands, it's 43% among opinion leaders, 17 among open, 3 cautious, and 0 closed. Okay? So there is huge difference. This is something that normal research does not take into consideration. New brands, they grew by 22%. The whole market was steady, just 3% growth. Okay? So the brands that people already know, after the third exposure, they reacted in the same way. While for new brands, they started to like it even more. And imagine you are a marketing director and you make a decision based on first reaction. Okay? I cannot speak about the third brand because it's not in the market yet and we are developing it, but basically the differences are very, very big. Okay? These new brands, they grew after third exposure. The attitudes towards novelty, they depend not only on the number of exposures, but also on the context in which the novelty is presented. Oops, doesn't play. Remember the Hey Ya hit by Outkast? This is the example from the book, The Power of Habit, a very good book, I can recommend it to you. The quote from the expert, from Arista Records. When I first heard this song, the hairs on my forearms stood up. The AI algorithms, I didn't know they were already then the AI algorithms, but they were. It said the song will be a big hit. The start was disastrous. 26% of listeners turned off the radio during 30 seconds while listening to the song. The quote from the expert is, "Heya didn't sound like the other songs, so some people were annoyed when they heard it." So what they did, they used what they called the sandwich method. They played Heya between two hits. The results were immediate. People stopped turning off the radio while listening to Heya. The Heya sold many records, and it got Grammy Awards, so it's a big success. So, let's wrap it up. What can we do to overcome neophobia? First, while designing the new, we obey most advanced yet acceptable principle. So we push it to the limit, yet keep it recognizable. Second, good ideas are polarizing. If it doesn't excite, there is no hope for it. If there is no emotions, if there is no argument during the first presentation, probably the idea is mild. So the habituation, part of the mere exposure effect, will happen very early. So there won't be, breakthrough. It won't have impact on the market. Some people need to love it. Some people need to hate it. First impression can be misleading. So we try to explore the first, second, and third impressions. We don't ask clients to make decisions under time pressure. So it's good to give time first. I give it to myself always, to consumers, to the team, and to your boss, if you're a client, to give time to make a decision. When concept testing, we go for opinion leaders. We recruit for our qualitative research. We recruit opinion leaders or the forward thinkers, and we encourage our clients to do in the quantitative research. The sandwich thing, when introducing an innovation connected to something familiar. Last not least, don't play what's there, play what's not there, as Miles Davis said. And we started the Neophobia project. Our mission is to free companies from the fear of the new, to unlock progress. And I hope we'll be in touch. Thank you.